I'm Mack, CEO of National Streaming Sports, and I'm excited to tell you about our Roku Sports channel. Already has over 12,000 followers, 20 podcasts, over 70 weekly shows, and a 3.4-star rating. Our channel is anchored by great morning shows, afternoon shows, and nighttime shows with great shows in between.
You're watching Mack and Jack on National Streaming Sports.
And here we are, Jack. It's a midweek. It's hump day. And boy, the hits keep coming here on National Streaming Sports Roku channel. We're also on YouTube, and we'll be on a lot of different sports today. Thank you all for tuning in, as you always do on our show. Jack, a lot of things, a lot of news in the NFL, and it always is. And there was a heck of a firestorm on our channel yesterday. I mean, the dust has settled. There was a lot with the Philadelphia-Atlanta game, and I can't let this go because I want to get my 2 cents in. I imagine you want to get your 2 cents in on this too. So the Eagles ended up losing to the Atlanta Falcons on Monday night. Now, some blame Barkley with dropping the ball he should have caught, which would have been a first down, and the game would have been over. The play calling of why they went for it twice on fourth down and didn't make it, why throw the ball in that spot at all and kick the field goal when they could have ran the ball. Minnesota had one timeout left, ran the ball. Even if he doesn't make the first down, Vikings call a timeout. Run the ball again.
Atlanta.
Oh, at the end of the game I'm talking about right now.
You said the Vikings.
Oh, sorry. So if Atlanta, if the Philadelphia Eagles run the ball again after they call a timeout, now here you are, Minnesota. You have about 30 seconds left, 39 seconds left, and you've got to drive the length of the field. Even if the Philadelphia Eagles didn't pick up the first down, that's worst case scenario. Best case, Barkley picks up the first down, game over. Scores a touchdown, game over. They didn't do it. They kicked the field goal after not making the third down play. They kick off, and Minnesota gets the ball back with 1:39 left. So, again, defensive play calling comes into question because they put no pressure on Kirk Cousins at all in a mobile quarterback, and he drives the ball down the field against a soft zone called the prevent defense, and he drives them down, and he scores with like, I don't know, what was it, Jack? 10 seconds left, 20 seconds?
No, there were like 34 seconds left. No,
okay.
The timeline is a little, if they would have had they run the ball, they would have had a little more time. I'm not sure how much Falcons had a timeout. I don't want to say the exact timeline, but I do know this. They had 3rd and 3, basically
right.
The Eagles, okay?
Right.
And they threw the, short pass to Barkley. Had he caught it, he would have gotten the first down. Game would have been over, but he dropped the ball. But people are willing to give Barkley a pass because it was just one play. He played a good game on balance. These things happen. You do drop balls. It's unfortunate. People are upset about it, but they don't want to blame him directly. So they blame Nick Sirianni, the coach, Mack. But let's look at it this way. Let's make believe Nick Sirianni ran the ball. He had 2 chances to make a first down. It was 3rd and 3. Falcons would have played against the run. Let's say the Falcons stop them. They go for it on 3rd down, and let's say now it's 4th and 1, and the Falcons stop them. Falcons would still have time to get into field goal range. We're living in an era of the long kickers. The Eagles were 3 points ahead at that point. 3 points ahead. And
right.
Had the Falcons tied the game up, had the Eagles hypothetically not gotten the first down. And let's be honest, it's 3rd and 3, and if you hand the ball off twice, we don't know whether they get the first down or not.
Good morning.
Well, good stuff, Sonja. But it brought back memories. Mack and myself going back and forth, and in an NFL game. And ironically, the Eagles would go on to win the Super Bowl. So it was all irrelevant then. When Mack mentioned Minnesota a couple of times, I corrected him once. I didn't the second time. I was probably thinking because he was referring to Kirk Cousins. He was conditioned in his head, understandably so, of Kirk Cousins being a Viking quarterback, not a Falcon quarterback. And, where we had our discussions back and forth, that was like a theory talk, whether they should have gone for this, gone for that. But as things turned out, the year didn't go too well for the Falcons. And obviously it went great for the Eagles, going on to win the Super Bowl. And Saquon Barkley, even if he retired hypothetically, which he's not going to do, of course, just as one season at Philadelphia, he'd be an Eagle, if not legend, one of their more legacy players because he, did help deliver them in large part of Super Bowl.
And good morning, Jack. I got kicked out right there as the video was ending. And good morning to everyone. Welcome to the Mack and Jack Show. Good morning to you, Brent. And of course, we are continuing to honor Mack, the creator and producer extraordinaire of this great network, National Streaming Sports, formerly Northeast Professional Sports. We did a whole show yesterday. You guys check that out on socials. Continue to support us. The show will go on with our heavily host in the sky there, Mack. Unfortunately, transitioning, but we are continuing to honor him and we will continue to do so. I like what Byron Williams said yesterday, Jack, on our show. It's Mack Day, Mack Week, and I like to think as Mack Month. I mean, this is the month of May, so all those M's. So we're going to continue to honor him, not just this month, but always.
Well, I'm not going to be somber talking about Mack. I'm going to joke around about him to the point where some people might even think, how can he say that? It's disrespectful. No, it's not disrespectful. Mack is probably laughing about it now. On tonight's show, I do a boxing show from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time on this network with Frank Laterzo called Glove Fist. And whenever we started the show, it's ironic because I have on a Rocky shirt. I don't know whether you remember the movie Rocky 1, they're interviewing Rocky Challenger in the meat factory, and Paulie's trying to get his face in the background. That was Mack always in the beginning of the show. We'd see Mack in the back, and someone would say, "Who's that guy in the back?" quickly. Like Mack would be there, and I would joke about Mack, getting on camera and all. And but we do have to talk about sports here. As much as everyone loves Mack, if we talked about him the full show now, to the average viewer who isn't familiar with Mack at all and is tuning into this show all of a sudden, they say, "Oh, condolences," and then they change the channel. They are here to talk about sports. I enjoy referring to Mack once in a while in different ways because Mack would sometimes drive me crazy and things, not to mean that he was wrong and I was right, but some of the theories, some of the discussions, Mack called me a bit of an instigator, and he's correct. I am one, but Mack could be one himself. He tried to ride me to try to get certain reactions. So we'd have a lot of fun with that. But the fondness always remained, the bond always remained. And if we ever did have like a disagreement, if we'd ever be angry with one another, by the next morning when we did the show, that would be past history. It would be as if that type of negativity never existed.
Yeah, we got a couple comments. Of course, CJ, we did a video clip yesterday and actually had you on one of them. He said even though they had creative differences, good morning panel, his heartfelt condolences to Mack and his family. And basically, he's grateful for the opportunity to be on the network. He said Mack was a class act, always brought balance to network. Thoughts and prayers go out to Jack, as I know this is difficult for him and his family. So definitely prayers to you. And Richard said that Mack's coaching experience showed up in that clip. So good morning to both of you. Guys, got a little bit of time here.
So Linda would have produced Linda McGrath along with Mack. I mean, prayers for Linda there.
Yeah,
okay?
definitely.
Because from my end, Mack lives on. Okay, because Mack's, always going to be a presence, in my life, especially whenever I do this show. And thank heavens we have like YouTube. I have so much footage of Mack and myself and go to, and things are continuation with Mack. To me, it's not like he's gone.
It's a comma. It's not a period. Yeah, that's what I like too, Jack.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk some NBA news. Of course, the Houston Rockets, the Warriors, all these NBA player and games going on right now. Golden State defeated the Rockets in Game 7, a thriller, Sunday night to advance to the second round where they will face the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is a very notable 6 versus number 7 seed matchup. Jack, what were your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. Before last night's game, it's a Game 7. Golden State was extremely, extremely calm. Their attitude, we've been here before. We know what it takes. We're not worried. And the Houston Rockets hadn't been in that situation. Even though they were number 2 seed, in a way it was good that they got it to a Game 7 and being on their home court too. I'm sure they had expectations that they would get over the top against Golden State. But Golden State, was in command all the way. And I learned a little bit of a lesson here. I'm quick to dismiss the experience factor come the playoffs because you're playing the whole regular season, you're playing against other teams. But Golden State had this quiet confidence about them, as if they knew they were going to win the game. They knew what it took. And the Houston Rockets looked like they were a bit on the nervous side right off the end. And you knew Houston was in trouble by, halftime when they were down like 10, 12 points, I forgot. And Steph Curry, his only points he scored was a 3-pointer right before halftime. So Steph Curry hadn't even gotten started yet, and Houston is down double digits at the half. You kind of knew Houston wasn't coming back because Steph Curry was going to start taking it to another level, which he did. I think he had 22. Buddy Hield was really outstanding the first half. He scored over 20 points, and Golden State got it done. They were never threatened in this game. They just took command from the outset. They kept it and kept their focus, and now they advance and play the Timberwolves. And what a terrific series!
Definitely terrific.
Anthony Edwards is going to bring a ton of energy. You talk about Draymond Green off the board, so you got Rudy Gobert there. Does Anthony Edwards cancel out Steph Curry? In a way, I think he does. I think Anthony Edwards could step up. Now you got Julius Randle. Does he cancel out Jimmy Butler? It's a very intriguing series. I don't think the experience factor is going to play in it all the way it did against Houston. You got the feeling Houston maybe was a little uptight and all. The Timberwolves are the most carefree team in the NFL. They went in very boldly against the Lakers. It's like they're willing to roll the dice. They'll run from the roulette, area, the casino to the blackjack area, back and forth, and have fun with, bundle of money. And the Timberwolves last year got eliminated, in the West Conference Finals against the Dallas Mavs. So it's not like they haven't been there. They've been on the brink of getting to the finals. Not Julius Randle, who came over in a trade for Karl Anthony Towns. So we'll see. It's a terrific series. And then the other series, too, Denver and OKC. Whoever wins the Denver OKC series, you don't know whether they're going to be favored, against the Timberwolves, the Golden State, or whatever. But OKC's the favorite at this moment. But it's a question of OKC having to prove themselves in the playoffs for the first time. and they're not going to have an easy ride getting into the finals by any means, because they're going to have a very tough Denver Nugget team, who I think they should beat. I get the feeling Denver, with the coaching change, they got by the Clippers, but in large part, the Nuggets beat the Clippers, Sonja, because the Clippers blew game one of that series to the Nuggets after leading the whole way and letting that game get away. And I said that's going to come back to haunt them. And I think the Nuggets could win this now in 7 games because the Clippers opened the door for them.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Of course, the Timberwolves Golden State game coming up is going to be a very notable number 6 versus number 7 seed matchup. Wow. I mean, talk about winning to stay in. I want to put a pin there real quick because I want to also talk about the fact that there was that coaching change with Denver. And so a lot of people predicted that was going to get them basically eliminated right away. But like you said, the Clippers giving up that first game was the momentum that the Nuggets needed to stay in. And so they are still in it. And before the coaching change, they were projected to go very deep into the playoffs, Jack.
No, yes and no as far as being projected to go deep in the playoffs, because Denver has been floundering somewhat with Mark Malone. He and the GM supposedly, reportedly, were on much different pages. There'd be a lot of tension within the organization, and they got by an LA Clipper team. Let's face it, it's a little dysfunctional. I have to stop the thought to see what Linda McGrath.
Yeah, good morning, Miss
Whenever
Linda.
Linda talks, I regard it like an important bulletin. That is newsworthy.
She always will be.
The banter will always be classic. Much love to everyone who will continue to keep Mack's stream alive. Thanks a lot, Linda. And this shows you how much this network meant to the McGrath, that Linda is in listening this morning. I mean, we didn't know that, and here she is tuning into the show. And we always think, Linda, you and Mack, and I'm going to continue to joke about Mack back and forth. Mack would have loved it, like you say, okay? And I know Mack is giving it back to me, because when I kind of flop on something, I hear Mack just laughing, but in a fun way where I could laugh along with him. So great stuff. But
yeah,
getting back,
I really wanted to speak to Miss Linda too. Thank you so much, Miss Linda, for chiming in this morning. Hope you caught a little flashback from the past that we started the show with. I'm continuing to pray for you as always, and so grateful for the opportunity to know you and Matt. We love you, and we just will continue to do exactly what we're supposed to do. Yeah, Jack. So definitely, like you said, you don't yes and no, about the Denver Nuggets going deeply into the playoffs now with the coaching change. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let's see what they do against OKC. If they get eliminated in, let's say, 5 or 6 games against OKC, what good was the coaching change? I mean, this isn't their objective. They won one series. So I don't want to hear about the coaching change helping. In other words, Sonja, it's like the jury's still out on the Denver Nuggets. We have to see what they do going forward. Something about this Clipper team, I just didn't like. They have a really good coach, the Clippers, and Tyronn Lue. Kawhi Leonard didn't take it up another level. He played okay against Denver. He was okay. But for someone who's potentially a superstar, you wonder about Kawhi Leonard. Has he been a disappointment? That's a good debate question. I got to write these debate questions down. We have a Saturday show, and whenever I think of something really good, I'm walking outside, and I don't have a pen and pad. I'm talking to you. I'm not going to stop and get a pen and pad and write it down, and then you forget it later. But that's a great question, because Kawhi Leonard was regarded in some circles at some point as one of the future greats in the NBA. In fact, Max Kellerman, I haven't spoken to Max for a while, but he was a friend. When he used to do the show on First Take, he even rated at one point, listen to this, Kawhi Leonard ahead of Kobe Bryant. He
Oh,
thought
wow.
he passed him. Now it seems far-fetched. It's really far-fetched. At the time he said it, I didn't agree with it, but it didn't come under the classification of being ridiculous. I didn't think you could just dismiss it, say, get out of here. You're out of your mind. I'm not even going to dignify it. It was worth dignifying and talking about. It had some merit as far as being a discussion. Because keep in mind, Kawhi Leonard, member of the San Antonio Spurs, win the NBA championship. Kawhi Leonard is 1 year with the Toronto Raptors, wins the NBA championship. So he was trending on an amazing career. But with the Clippers, he hasn't played like a superstar. He's played like a very, very good player, extremely good player. But we want more out of him, and he didn't supply it in that series. Maybe he deferred to James Harden a little more than he should have, but I don't regard Harden as a selfish player because he distributes the ball, so much. But let's see what Denver does against OKC.
Yeah, speaking of distributing so much, Miss Linda coming back saying, I'll always be here with all of you as you are with us. So we appreciate you, Miss Linda.
And
Brian,
I'll also be joking with Mack, stuff like he's saying and so on. And, one thing I'll never have an answer to. I'll never have an answer to this. I don't think even Linda knows the answer. Who drove who more crazy? Did I drive Mack more crazy, or did he drive me more crazy in our discussions? I don't know whether I'll ever have a true answer to that. I suppose I could have potentially driven him more crazy, but Mack had thicker skin than me. So he just, fluffed off my nonsense. But when Mack would come up with some sports theme that I thought was way off base, I would go on a real tangent about it. So I guess the answer is he drove me a lot more crazy because he had a better personality than I have, a stronger foundation.
yeah, and good morning to you, Brian Arndt Bistrilla from the One Eight Cheek Three Toes podcast. He says, "Good morning, Jack and Sonja." Of course, we continue to sprinkle Mack in. This is how we continue to live the legacy because he's always with
Sonja,
us.
I'm cutting in so I don't forget the thought. You and Bistrilla did an amazing job for that production for Mack. For people who haven't seen it, they tell them how they could go to YouTube to try to catch that one particular show. For those who know Mack or want to know about him.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that, Jack. Yesterday, I actually got the idea once we learned of Mack's transition on Saturday. It was Jack, myself, and J Train wrapped up the debate show that we were talking about on Saturday morning. As we were sitting backstage, literally like moments after the show, Miss Linda calls and gives Jack the unfortunate news. And so we got off the air. I thought about it for a little bit, and I wanted to put together something where people could pay tribute to Mack. So I got a lot of video clips together. I didn't know how to merge them for presentation purposes. So I reached out to Bistrilla, and he and I literally stayed up all night or most of the night Saturday night getting these clips together. And yesterday's show, we did clips of Mack, some of his greatest moments with a lot of the network, past and present. And I reached out to all the contacts I had known through Mack and let them know what we were doing. And everybody came on the show yesterday, offered words of support to Miss Linda, of course, shared their fondest memories of Mack. And all of us vowed to continue to live Mack's legacy and to continue with the humor that he would want us to have. There were some tears, but all in all, we did it Mack style. So you could go on our network. Of course, National Streaming Sports, we're on Roku. That was aired on there. I will replay it again once there's another plug. It's usually going to be later in the evening. It also ran again yesterday at 4 p.m. It's also on the National Streaming Sports YouTube page. All you need to do is go to the episode for yesterday, May 4th, 2025. The show is 1 hour and 16 minutes. But it is extremely profound, and it was definitely an honor to do something so great for such a great man.
It's funny. I'm thinking of some of the shows we did where we had some laughs where I reflect back. And one of them, we had one episode when we were talking about Jim Jeffcoat, former two-time Super Bowl champion with the Dallas Cowboys, 107 sacks in his NFL career. He played 15 years, 12 for Dallas, 3 for Buffalo. Me, him, and Mack were debating, I brought this question up, whether a woman would ever play in the NFL. And
Oh,
I
wow.
always like to look at a path for something. And you're never going to get a woman as a wide receiver, running back. I got to be honest, a quarterback. But I thought, women's soccer. You have some awesome women's soccer players. I can maybe see a field goal kicker. Maybe the men could kick the ball, a little further. But if you get a woman who's amazingly accurate from within 50 yards, I think there are women out there who could kick a football up to 50 yards, I would guess. And if you have one with amazing accuracy, there's always a chance a team picks her up. That was my way of thinking. So it would be a debate. So we would go back and forth. Jim Jeffcoat, who has, a daughter who plays sports, says, yeah, I think someday there'll be a woman in the NFL. Maybe it's a kick or whatever. And I said, yeah, I think some way, somehow you'll get a woman, in the NFL as a kicker at some point, a soccer player. And Mack said, get out of here. You two are out of your mind. That's never going to happen. Like he kind of laughed at the two of us. It was kind of funny in a way, but the truth of the matter is a reflection. No offense, Sonja. Mack is right. You're not going to have a woman in the NFL. Maybe you want to debate if you get a phenomenal woman basketball player, can she hold a place on the bench, never play on the man's team, be like a 12th, no pun intended, 12th man, 12th woman, whatever you want to call her. Can she barely make the roster, never play at the end of the bench? And I'm talking in terms of if it's a superstar women's basketball player, superstar, a lot better than the Caitlin Clarks and Angel Reese's. Better than that. They wouldn't be good enough to, come anywhere close to holding an NBA roster spot. But if you get a Michael Jordan woman, okay, that's what I mean, a Michael Jordan, a LeBron James woman type who totally dominates the WNBA, maybe can they get a roster spot? You debate that, but I don't mean to debate it on this show. But it was funny the way Mack dismissed it, like just blew us away.
Yeah, never. Oh, you're out of your mind, Jack.
We were being politically correct, Jim Jeffcoat and myself, and Mack was telling it like it was, basically, and I kind of have some memories of that.
Yeah, Miss Linda comes back and says she thinks it's equal, that you guys both got on each other's nerves. She came back and said that. And B. Strilla said to tell you thank you. He said you're far too kind for the compliments.
Well, you guys did a phenomenal job in the tribute. When you first, I saw your email about the tribute, I wasn't crazy about the way it was going to be held. And then later, when I saw the way you two did it, I was a little internally embarrassed that I would be annoyed at the setup. The setup was so great, so perfect, so wonderful. You could get CBS, NBC, ABC. They would have had, those producers would have had nothing on the way you and Skrilla, did the production. Yeah.
That means a lot, Jack. Oh my gosh, because I know you
like me.
You're gonna get me.
Let's get back to sports.
Let's talk about the East. Let's talk about the East. Thank you, Jack. So the second round action continued on Monday with game one matchups. Boston Celtics versus the New York Knicks are going to be held today. Of course, we talked about the OKC game. What are your thoughts on the Celtics and the Knicks?
I think the Knicks are going to give them a series. I don't understand. I hear everyone saying, well, if the Knicks win one game, it's good. I think I heard Brian Hirsch say, the Knicks win one game, it's good. If they win 2 games, they should have a celebration. I think they are going to win a couple of games. Come on. There are no moral victories here. I'm going to be honest about it. If the Knicks lose a tough 7-game series and they take the Celtics down to the wire, it's going to be a disappointment. At some point, the Knicks have to take the next step. And take a run at winning the NBA championship. It can't be this way year after year. You get in the playoffs, you win one series, you lose the next one. I know it's to the Celtics, and I know the Knicks fan base isn't going to be that upset if the Knicks, lose in 5, 6 games. They're going to say, well, the Celtics are just better. But at what point are the Knicks going to become serious championship contenders if they're not doing it now? They made the big deal. They got Karl Anthony Towns. They got Mikal Bridges this year. They put themselves in position to take a serious run at the Celtics. The Celtics have had their number, winning all 3 games during the regular season. But now's the time to step up. The Celtics could actually be had. They're not invincible. I mean, the Celtics have coasted a good part of the year. It's the number 2 seed. They had a solid year, but I don't want to hear about moral victories with the Knicks. I don't think they're going to win. I think they'll lose in 6 games. I actually think going back to Boston after 4 games, it's going to be 2 games apiece. I think the Knicks are going to grab one of these first 2 games in Boston. I think they'll split in the Garden, and then Boston will win games 5 and 6. If you want a prediction, a trend, how the series is going to go. But I'm tired of these moral victories. Moral victories, Sonja, are only good when the team comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, literally.
Okay? They exceed expectations. I can understand that, but it's so hard in sports to get back to where you were before. Look, the Washington Commanders exceeded everyone's expectations in the NFL. They went to the NFC Championship game and lost to the Eagles. But after the game, I would be upset if I were a Commander fan. I would be proud of the year they had, but it's so close. It's so hard, to get back to the point that you were at sometimes. Everyone has the attitude, oh, well, we'll get it done next year. We got here this year. We'll take an extra step next year. It doesn't work that way. It's hard to get back to where you were. You have to start all over. No one's handing you anything at all. Like I sometimes think about the Olympics, and you hear one competitor who's favored to win the event. Oh, they lost the gold medal. They didn't lose the gold medal. They never had the darn gold medal. And if they wound up with the gold medal, they have to earn that. It's so hard to get back to a certain spot sometimes. And for the Knicks, if they get eliminated by Boston, it's a do-over again. What makes you think it's going to be much different next year? Unless the Knicks could somehow work out a deal where they get Giannis, change the whole face of the team, and they'd have to give up a lot for Giannis. I'm not sure exactly who. They wouldn't, I could speculate, say Bridges would be part of the deal, would Karl Anthony Towns be part of the deal or whatever. You're giving up chips to get a big chip. But if the Knicks come back with the same team next year, which they probably will, if they can't get it done now, what makes you think they're going to get it done next year?
Yeah, it's so hard to get back. Just in anything. And because you have to account for so many factors other than just having the same players. You have to account for opposing teams. You have to account for possible injuries, even climate change, anything that goes on, just lifing can actually throw your trajectory. Like you may mentally say, okay, we'll be back. It's very difficult to do that in anything in life, not just sports. Let's talk about the
Sonja, you made a remark. I might not let you live it down for climate change. Now I understand high altitude.
So like weather, like the weather. It could be a bad storm, and you may have to move your game to somewhere else to play it.
Yeah, I know. I hear what you're saying. There are a lot of different factors, especially first and foremost, the one you mentioned, the injury factor. When you can, people forget that a few years ago, when the Milwaukee Bucks won the NBA title, the Nets could have very easily won it. Kevin Durant's 3-point shot, his foot was on the line. Nets win that. They could have gone on like Milwaukee did and won the NBA championship. And our whole narrative of the Nets and Kevin Durant would have been so much different if he delivered the Brooklyn Nets an NBA championship.
Okay, so I can finish now.
Yeah. You can never finish with me,
I know,
Sonja.
it's okay.
And
See, I've learned that. This is the
Mac
funny
is
thing.
putting you up to this, you know.
Yes, yes, yes.
At least
So
you
we're
do it
gonna
with a smile on your face. Mac didn't smile at me the same way.
sometimes I don't, Jack.
He
I'll
was
be like, really,
amused,
Jack?
though.
I need to
Yeah.
finish. Yeah, so let's talk about the Pacers game. They grabbed a 9-point win Sunday night to take home court advantage from the top team in the Eastern Conference. Tyrese Halliburton, of course, hang on late in the last part of the game to knock off the Cavaliers in the first matchup. What are your thoughts on that? Because the Pacers nearly blew a double-digit halftime lead at Rocket Arena on Sunday, and they ended up winning 121-112 win over the Cleveland Cavaliers. And that gave them the edge to basically take that 1-0 lead in the Eastern Conference semifinal.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the Pacers could get off to the big lead, and they're holding the lead all game, and then Cleveland finally kind of catches up, you know, late in the game and in the second half, and then predictably they did. But you know, the Pacers held firm, and Jared Allen, I was a little disappointed. He's normally extremely reliable, one of my favorite players, just wasn't grabbing rebounds. And at the end of the game, I mean, the Pacers would seem to get so many offensive rebounds there. And it was just a disappointing outing, you know, for the Cavaliers. It happens one game, and I don't want to hear stuff, well, home court advantage. The Pacers won a game, they're up 1-0. But with that said, game two is super crucial for Cleveland because you fall down 2-0. You play the next two games in, you know, Indianapolis. And even though the Cavaliers are capable of winning two games there, chances are that they don't. And they wind up maybe going back to Cleveland down 3-1, you know, and that's very precarious if it happened. But I expect the Cavaliers to restore it in game two, you know, win that. And they're the better team. The Cavaliers are the better team, and they should ultimately prevail. I think for the most part, they just had an off game, and they're going to correct that.
Yeah, this is the first time Cleveland has been upset like that in a post game matchup here in this series. But I do want to give kudos to one of the Cleveland Cavalier players. That would be Donovan Mitchell, who actually put up his 8th straight series opener of 30 plus points, which broke the record of the great Michael Jordan's 7-game mark. Jordan has scored 30 plus points in a series opener in 2 different 7-game streaks, while leading the Chicago Bulls to 6 championships between 1991 and 1998. Mitchell finished the night with 33 points, but Indiana, of course, won the series. So congratulations to Donovan Mitchell. Did you know that, Jack?
You know, I didn't know that exact stat, but I'm going to tell you with the Cavaliers, this is more important that they win this series than the Pacers winning it. And it's one thing if the Cavaliers advance to the Eastern Finals and they lose a tough 6 or 7 game series to the Boston Celtics. It's understood because they're playing a team as good as they are, if not a little better. A team with a major pedigree, I should say, in the Celtics. But to lose to the Indiana Pacers, I mean, come on. And I know the Pacers got to the conference finals last year, but for the most part, they're no more than just a good team. There's nothing really exceptional about them. You know, they're well coached, play well together. But the Cavaliers absolutely have to beat this type of team. And after the 64-win season the Cavaliers had, you mean to tell me they're going to lose the best 4 out of 7 series to the Indiana Pacers? I mean, that would be one of the big disappointments of the year. That would be a bigger disappointment for Cavalier Nation than it would for the Lakers losing to the Timberwolves.
Well, the thing is, Jack, they have their all-star point guard Darius Garland, who's missed 3 games now. He sat out last night's game as well, game 1 in the Eastern Conference. He's missed 3 consecutive playoff games because he has a sprained left big toe. I mean, people don't realize the importance of those big toes. They literally balance everything. He was also idle in games 3 and 4, the first round when the Cavs swept the Heat. I mean, how big of a factor is he going to be in this matchup?
Well, everything's a big factor, but it's just readjusting. I mean, like I said a little while ago, the Cavaliers' problem was, on the boards. I mean, they just didn't rebound the way they normally did yesterday. It was frustrating at the end of the game when you saw the door maybe opening for Cleveland to maybe come back. And they played good defense on the Pacers. Pacers would miss a shot, but the Pacers would get their own offensive rebound. It was so frustrating there, for the Cavaliers. And, it's important, but I expect Jared Allen to step up. Mobley, I think, had 10 rebounds yesterday. He's going to be consistent. And Donovan Mitchell, they can't afford him to take a little step back, have a so-so game now and then. Donovan Mitchell, you're waiting for him to establish himself as one of the superstars in the league. When we talk about the superstars of the league, his name never comes up. Like if we took a poll of 10 basketball experts and had them all write down who are the top 5 players in the NBA, certain of the names would be the same, like Jokic. He'd be on everyone's list, of course. But some of the names would be on there, like Anthony Edwards, top 5. Maybe some people wouldn't have Anthony Edwards top 5, but I wonder would anyone at all have, Donovan Mitchell in their top 5. Something about Donovan Mitchell when we talk about the great players, we talk about Giannis, now Anthony Edwards, Steph Curry. No one quite mentions Donovan Mitchell, even though he's very well known.
Right. I mean, he was mentioned for a while, but it's ebbs and flows, Jack. Sometimes players' names are up here, sometimes they're down here, sometimes they're in between. I just think it's one of those kind of in between weird spots that, he's there, but is he as relevant, with all the surrounding talent that's around him, basically? As we have about 13 minutes left, let's switch topics. Tonight, you're going to be doing your boxing show, Glove Fist with Frank Lotierzo. Great show, everybody. Make sure you check it out at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here, same station. Canelo Alvarez is remaining undisputed after defeating William Skull, Jack.
Yeah, there was a big weekend in boxing, actually. I'll review the whole thing now. It started Friday night. They had a show at Times Square. Yeah, it was exciting that Times Square had activity, but the promotion was a bit of a fiasco, all in all. But Ryan Garcia got upset by Raleigh Romero. That was a bit of a shock.
Definitely.
Romero is kind of like, he's an ordinary fighter. I mean, he's a good fighter, but there's nothing special about Raleigh Romero, yet he beat Ryan Garcia. Garcia had been coming off the 1-year suspension for PD use. He just didn't have it. He got knocked out in the second round, and there was never any urgency. He never stepped up and, threw the type of punches late in the fight that could turn the fight around. And he was outpointed in his fight. Devin Haney had his first fight in 1 year. Devin Haney won a decision over Jose Luis Ramirez. Haney fought like he was scared the whole fight, but he did what he had to do to win. He didn't create any excitement in the slightest. Teofimo Lopez looked really, really good. He was the one fighter who looked really, really good on the show by beating Arnold Barboza. Barboza was an unbeaten fighter. It went the distance in large part because Barboza's a good fighter. He didn't take the extra chances, even though Barboza moved forward. And I can't blame him once you feel Teofimo's power. But Teofimo boxed really well. Then Saturday, the big fight there, like you say, was Canelo Alvarez. And Canelo Alvarez fought this unbeaten Cuban William Skull. And Alvarez won a decision. I thought he won comfortably. One of the judges had it close. One of the judges had it lopsided. I had something in between. Alvarez, couldn't cut off the ring. William Skull ran around the ring. Yeah. Literally the whole fight. And I had Alvarez winning 9-3, but it was boring. It was boring. And I think Canelo has gotten to the point, and I felt this way 3-4 years ago, that he was a fighter who was declining. But because he's so dedicated, he held that off to an extent. To the naked eye, how much he was declining. But he's been in with mediocre opponents who at times could make him look good and mask the deficiencies he has. And now it's going to be on to Terrence Crawford September 12th in the Las Vegas Raiders Stadium.
Allegiant Stadium.
Right. I would venture to guess the Raiders don't have a game the next day. Because you're going to have to turn it from a ring you can get rid of quickly into the football field. That would be my guess. But they
turn it over really quickly, though, Jack. I mean, I've seen them having events here in Atlanta where they have a concert or something like that, and then the next day there's a Falcon game, and it's amazing how quick they get to work. They literally work from the time it's really quick, and it's amazing to see how quick they turn it back over.
Yeah, okay, that is amazing, and kudos to the workers who were able to get something like that done. But, the commentator, Claudio Treehouse, I have to drop a line. I don't know her, but she's a Facebook friend of mine. Yeah, I understand she's not a boxing expert. I do understand that, and I give people slack. I really do, unless they're asking something that's downright ridiculous. They've got to get called out on it. She's interviewing Crawford. She says, do you think this is the biggest fight in boxing history? I mean, she's ridiculous, Crawford and Canelo.
That's really big to say that.
It's absurd. It's absurd.
Yes.
It's like someone's having, before the Super Bowl, before the Eagles played the Chiefs, saying, do you think this is the biggest event in sports history today?
That's a stretch.
And even Crawford, to his credit, said, I wouldn't say that. I'll say it's the biggest fight in the last 12 years. Now, that's highly debatable. It's highly debatable, but at least it's arguable. There's a difference between certain things being arguable and not. And for her to even suggest that was remotely in the same league as the first Ali Frazier fight and some others as well is crazy. It's crazy. And I felt like dropping a line, but I don't really know her saying, please don't embarrass yourself. You know what I mean? She embarrassed herself. I mean, you don't want some. Listen, I fake it at times at things I don't know. You could start talking to me about golf. And I don't know much about golf. I'm not the biggest fan, but I could fake it to a degree.
Right. You can stay relevant in the conversation, right?
I'm not going to get, pick some golfer who won the latest tournament, and say, do you think he's the greatest golfer in the history of the sport? Just throw it out, but whatever. But Canelo and Crawford, September 12th in Las Vegas. To me, it's a fight that the expiration date, if it hasn't passed, it's still edible, but past the expiration date. That's what I compare to. You look at the label, and it said used by, and it passed that date. Crawford is 37 years old. He's not the fighter he was. He's still very, very good. Don't get me wrong. He's still very good, but he's not the fighter he was. He's been inactive. His last fight against Israel Magramov, he looked ordinary in that fight. Canelo has been declining. They're not the fighters they were. But let me tell you, Sonja, in boxing, it's about the brand. That's what attracts people. You don't have to be exciting, but they'll tune in to see it. Look, Floyd Mayweather created a brand. Mayweather was a boring fight on balance. He was a boring fighter. He would turn in some less than exciting performances. Maybe exciting isn't the word. Less than sterling performances later in his career. He wasn't looking that good. Yet people would hear Mayweather, they'll see him again. Mayweather fought Manny Pacquiao. The fight was 5 years too late. They were still good fighters. They just weren't great fighters, like all-time great fighters, if you felt they were that. They were kind of past that, but they were still good.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mayweather beats Pacquiao by decision. The fight comes on at 1 in the morning Eastern time. Imagine that, 1 in the morning Eastern time.
No type of promotion for folks really at all.
But it was like the Super Bowl of boxing, because a lot of people would tell me who weren't boxing fans, they would have parties over people's homes, get to fight Mayweather Pacquiao.
Yep.
And then they were complaining what a boring fight it was. What a boring fight it was. But guess what? If they had a rematch, those same people would be back and spend a pay-per-view for the rematch. I got to tell you what I did quickly. I know I'm cutting in.
Well,
But
yeah, because I'm going to talk to you about Canelo as well.
I want to get to Mayweather Pacquiao, what I did. I never got the pay-per-view fight.
Oh.
Listen to this. I thought it was a ripoff. They were charging $99.99,
Yeah.
$100. 1 year before Pacquiao fought Mayweather, this is a true story. I had presented Mayweather the Fighter of the Year award. I presented him the award in Las Vegas at the MGM Hotel. Now, 1 year later, he's fighting Pacquiao, and I'm watching the fight in the basement of my home. I refused, wasn't going to go to Las Vegas because the media crush was such. I'd maybe be put in the boondocks, one of the last rows in the Texas theater, or maybe even in a conference room, who knows. So I took $99, Sonja, and went to a flea market, and I bought items for $99, and I wrote a story how the money could be better spent.
Oh, wow.
And I won an award for the story.
I totally believe that. So for people that don't know, Jack is a former writer of one of the boxing.
Not former, current.
Yeah, current writer. Sorry.
Let's get to Canelo. What were you going to ask?
Yeah, so thanks, Jack. So you were talking about how, he's been lackluster, on the decline. I mean, Canelo, Haney, and Garcia basically have been milking boxing fan dry. He went to Saudi Arabia, Canelo did. Yeah. And basically people weren't even cheering. People were just sitting there scrolling their phones, no chanting, not even a big crowd at all. Just a bunch of VIP oil people, people that got oil on, business billionaires. Nobody saying anything when, if he was in his prime and in his heyday, as my grandmother used to say, he should have been in Vegas or in Mexico somewhere, packing out a audience and slamming people's heads. I mean, Jack, you hit the head on with the nail, like you hit the nail on the head, because he was in Times Square. People were basically trying to keep themselves awake, watching Devin Haney shadowbox. He shadowboxed for 12 rounds. Garcia, basically the selfie king, floated around and throwing arm punches like he was trying not to break his fingernail, rather. And then his dad on the sidelines, Devin Haney's dad was there, basically acting like his son was doing way more than what he was, just reacting to every little thing.
No, Devin Haney's dad, Bill Haney, his conduct is sometimes extremely embarrassing. Let's, leave it at that. He's not the only dad. We see a pattern in sports, Sonja. This is a topic for another time. Dads who are an embarrassment to their sons. I mean, these dads couldn't make it themselves as athletes. Mm-hmm. So don't get me wrong, they've been an asset to their son a lot of times by helping them, as fathers. But Bill Haney, if you ever heard him talk, he's vulgar, very embarrassing. I mean, Ryan Garcia's dad sometimes is the same way, the way he acts. And but sometimes it's image too. Teofimo Lopez's father came off that way, as really someone you couldn't stand, couldn't like, in addition to Teofimo Lopez Jr. Let me tell you, behind the scenes, they're sweethearts. They're two of my favorite people, Teofimo Jr. and Sr. They're such good guys, behind the scenes. So, but you're right. You pointed out good atmosphere in Saudi Arabia. Why was he fighting there? The Saudis are putting up the money. They wanted it in their host country. Why not? You know, the Saudis got so much money to burn.
Dude, my goodness.
Sonia, it's not like a
I wish I
normal
was related
promoter.
to one of them. I just need some of the money.
They're willing to lose a few million on a show. It seems okay. We lose it, we'll make it back. We
They
got
weren't
more than
even
enough.
paying attention. They were just sitting there like it looked. I don't even know how to describe it. It was very unsettling. And you're talking about, look at Tyrese real quick. You talk about bad dads or lack of
Well,
conduct.
dads who
Tyrese
embarrass
Halliburton's
their
dad
sons.
definitely.
No, well, dads who are embarrassing to their sons.
Yeah.
Okay, and sometimes these sons have to keep them under control. I
Yeah.
mean, and if it's a good dad, he'll back off. I mean, look at the dads. What was it? The Ball brothers in the NBA. The father tried to bring attention to himself the whole time. And that there'd be a couple of others, and it's not about them. They should be in the background, but it's what it's. But back to atmosphere.
Good
Eh,
morning,
People,
Jonathan.
people don't realize when Buster Douglas upset Mike Tyson, the fight was in Tokyo. It was held in the morning in Tokyo, and it was like the crowd didn't go crazy when Douglas knocked Tyson out. It was like they were doing their morning thing, having their morning coffee, watching the fight in
Right.
Tokyo. It didn't have that dramatic effect.
Yeah, I mean, not the dramatic effect at all, but like you said, when people have money to just throw things away, throw money away. I mean, we as Americans and we as some of us, the way we live frugally, Jack, I'm sure you can definitely respect that. We are not going to pay money to go somewhere and sit and just be on our phones, literally, and just scroll. Like they weren't even looking at what was going on around them.
Yeah, I mean, but the purpose of the promotion with the Saudis, they're kind of looking at the big picture. I think they want to take over boxing completely, and then they'll make their money back. They got Dana
Wow.
White now involved. Supposedly, he's going to start a boxing league, and eventually, the fighters are not going to get paid nearly the amount they are now, unless the other independent promoters stay in the business, provide competition, and we'll see how it unfolds. But for the time being, there's a lot of good fights being made by the Saudis. So I want to give His Excellency, the guy in charge, a lot of credit for providing top fights.
Yeah, and hello, Scott. He says sorry he hadn't been around. Condolences to the whole network, of course, to Miss Linda. Thoughts and prayers. Hey, Scott, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Jonathan saying good morning as well. Yeah, so listen, Jack just gave you guys a great preview of what's to come tonight at 7 p.m. on Glove Fist, him and Frank Lortierzo. Great show. We can't wait to have you on. We have shows throughout the rest of this morning. Jack, always a great time with you. Of course, Mack, we did this one for you, and we will bid you guys a good day.